Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be looking at the setup tab. I don't really have anything else to say for this intro, so let's just get right into it. Okay, so when you plug in your drone, the first tab that appears is the setup tab. On the setup tab, you'll see on top over here, calibrate accelerometer, calibrate magnometer, reset settings, activate bootloader / DFU, and you'll have a box that's kind of like a simulation of your quad. And to the right, you'll have an info box, a GPS box, and instruments. So there's not too many things on this tab, and you don't actually do too much on this tab either. But it's still very important to look at it because there are some things that you need to know. Before we actually get into the setup tab itself, if you look right at the top over here, you see over here you've got a couple of things. The first one is gyro, and then there's accelerometer. For me, that are yellow. The rest are all dark. That's because I do not have a magnometer, a barometer, a GPS, or a sonar. I have none of these. All I have is gyro or accelerometer, which are the two basic ones that you need to have on a quad. Most of the time, that's what you're gonna have. You'll only have the gyro and the accelerometer, and that's perfect. Over here, you see this little sign is for when the motors are armed. So I don't really know why that's there, because technically you will see if your quad is armed just because the motors will be spinning, but it's there. And next to it, you've got the fail-safe mode that will glow when there is a fail-safe that is activated. Now let's actually get into the setup. So the first thing that you'll see in the setup tab is the calibrate accelerometer button. Basically what this does is when you calibrate the accelerometer, this will tell the flight controller which side is up. So that's why you need to place your quad or just flight controller on a leveled surface so that it is not angled or anything, so it knows which side is up. So we'll just do it now. So I'll hold it the best I can straight. If we hold it the straightest I can, like this. Just make it as straight as possible, then we can calibrate the accelerometer, and then it will know which side is up. So if I just click this, it calibrates the accelerometer, and now the accelerometer is calibrated, so now my flight controller knows which side is up. That's really all it does. It is very important because you do not want to go fly and then your quad just isn't flying up, kind of. Basically you need to know which side is up, or else you just can't do anything. The next button over here is something I cannot press, the calibrate magnometer. Like I said, on the top over here, I do not have a magnometer on my quad, which is why I cannot calibrate it. This is fine because most quads will not have a magnometer. And also it's quite complicated to set up because you need to be away from any magnets or metal objects. There are other ways of calibrating this, but because I don't have one, I'm not going to be talking about it too much, and you probably don't have one either. The next button, reset settings. So don't be fooled. It says restores settings to default. But if you got a pre-built drone that's ready to go, so everything was already programmed on the drone. Like, let's say my drone right over here from Ishin, the TS-130, it was a pre-programmed drone that I just reset. What this does is it does not reset it to the manufacturer's defaults. It resets it to the Betaflight defaults, which means it's going to erase everything on the quad. So don't be fooled. It does not reset it to what it was when you bought the drone. It will reset it completely. Nothing is going to work. It's just going to be sitting there. Your quad is just going to be sitting there and doing nothing. If you ever do click the only way of getting the manufacturer's defaults is by going into the presets tab and loading a backup. And that's why every time you get a new quad, you should always save a backup of it somewhere where you'll remember where it's going to be on your computer. So if you ever want to switch something, or you just want to bring back the original settings that you had when you bought the quad, you can always load the backup and you'll have it again. But never press the reset settings. It can be useful in some situations, sometimes you need it, but for the most part you're not going to be touching those. The next one, activate bootloader and DFU. This just takes you out of the Betaflight setup page, and the only way of actually getting out of the DFU, it basically disconnects the drone, and over here on top, if I would disconnect the drone, over here it would say DFU, and the only way of getting out of DFU mode is by clicking update firmware, and at the complete bottom of the screen there will be exit DFU. Okay, so after the reset settings and DFU that for some reason disappeared, there's the big simulation over here. That's the biggest thing on the setup tab. Basically what this does is if I move my quad around, the simulation will simulate those movements. None of this actually affects any of the flying, so anything you see over here won't really do anything. This also helps you know if the accelerometer is properly set up, calibrated, and a couple other things. On the top left, you've got the heading, the pitch, and the roll, which just changes the degree every time I turn the quad in a certain direction. And on the right, there is the reset Z-axis and the offset of the Z-axis. Basically, what this does, it does not affect the quad itself, it only affects the simulation. So what this does is, if let's say you see the green arrow over here, if I make it point towards me like this with my quad, I can press the Z-axis, the reset Z-axis button, and then it's just going to make my quad point away from me again, in the simulation at least. And then if I move my quad back there, and then I can reset it again. So that's all it does. It only affects the simulation. It does not affect your quad itself. Next, the info box. So the info box has some very important information. There's the arming disable flags, which is the most important thing in here. The battery voltage, capacity drawn, current draw, and the RSSI. Most of these will be showing 0 as the number. If I don't have a battery plugged into it, it obviously will either be very close to 0 like over here, or at 0. The most flight controllers aren't set up to actually calculate the capacity drawn and the current draw. So that's why sometimes when you plug in a battery, the milliamps and the amps might just be completely off, and it's not going to make any sense that it's pulling that many amps just from the drone sitting down on your desk. But yeah, anyways, the most important part, like I said before, is the arming disable flags. This is what is going to show you what is wrong and why you are not able to arm your quad. Like right now, I've got RX failsafe and MSP. The RX failsafe, what that means is that there's no connection to a radio or anything, a receiver basically. That's because my radio is turned off, and also the battery isn't plugged in, so I wouldn't be able to do it. The next one that I have right now is MSP. This basically all it's saying is that the MSP is active, and that's because my quad is plugged into Betaflight, so it's not going to let me arm my quad. But if I plug in my drone right over here like this, and then I turn on my quad, my radio, over here you can see already that right when I plugged in the battery, it showed me a higher voltage, milliamps and amps. These don't really make sense, but that's not too important for the moment. So over here you can see RX failsafe disappeared because it's kind of appearing and disappearing, but it disappears when I have a radio connected to it, or a receiver connected to my quad. So, and MSP is still there because my quad is still connected to my computer. Now, if I arm my quad with my radio, it's going to show me arm switch, and it's going to start beeping. Basically, what the arm switch is, it's basically telling me that because I'm plugged in, because the MSP is active, or just any other arming disable flag is active, it will not let me arm my quad. So over here, if I look, One of the other disarm flags is active when arming. That's basically, there's something else like the MSP or the RX failsafe that appears and it's not going to let me arm. There are many other arming disable flags that you can get. Those are just 3 of the many that you can have. And to know what it is, you can just drag your mouse over it and see what it means. The next little box right under the GPS is right under the info is the GPS. Sorry. The GPS box is only useful if you have a GPS, but if you look up here, I do not have a GPS, which means there will be nothing showing here, so it's completely useless for me. If you have a GPS, there will be certain things that will be shown, but most of the time for so many quads, you will not have a GPS unless you put one. So we're just going to skip it for now because there really isn't anything here. And finally, the last box in the setup tab is the instruments. It's cute, but it's completely useless. Because, one second, I'll just unplug my battery. Because all it does is it's kind of like the instruments in an airplane. When I move my quad, it will just move the little instruments over here, but it doesn't do anything. It really doesn't. It's completely useless. So yeah, that was the setup tab. There isn't much in here. The main thing you have to do in here is calibrating the accelerometer, and you'll also be going here to check the arming disable flags. Alright guys, that was the end of the video. We finished looking at the setup tab. Like I said before, there really isn't much to do in here, but the things that you do need to do in here are rather important. I hope you learned something. I hope you understood. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. And subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.